Hello, you guys. Welcome back. Second video of tonight. On chapter 5 of the book, Because I Cried Out, by the author and publisher Tamika Anderson. This is chapter 5. The title of this chapter is An Open Door Policy. It starts off saying, "Come in." Nick was always trying to convince me to date him. I would not dream of being his girlfriend. Now, I like to smoke marijuana with him, but that was as far as it was going. He and I thought alike. I thought like a crook, and he thought like a con artist. Not exactly the same, but not too different. Nick was transparent to me. Nick did not care. He wanted me in his life very badly. Every time I saw him, he would give me some quick line that I knew was a lie. When it came to schemes, games, and tricks, he was the best of them all. We were only teenagers, and he knew all types of con games to get drugs and money from people. He knew that to be in my presence was to smoke weed with me. There was no way I was going to let him manipulate me of anything. I was already on probation from a theft charge. I didn't need Nick to add to it. Even after graduating from high school, Nick was there. He had always offered me a position to be his lady. At age 19, I was living in my own apartment. I had been dating Bo for about 3 years. Our relationship had turned from being verbally and emotionally conflicting to physical violence. Luckily for me, my 3-year-old son was living with my mother. He did not witness any of the chaos. One particular evening, Bo and I had a physical altercation in front of my apartment complex. These fights had become increasingly frequent. I only weighed 100 pounds, so of course he overpowered me. He picked me up and threw me to the ground. I landed flat on my buttocks. The conflict was not over until he was satisfied. Satisfaction for him was when he could see scratches and bruises on my body. I was hurt and angry. This man and his violence were getting worse. I decided that I had to do something. He would eventually try to kill me. The Bo and Sherry thing was ending, or Cherie. We could no longer go on this way. As far as I was concerned, it was over. The same night, I took a warm shower and tried to nurture some of the scratches that I had on my neck. I did not want to stay in that lonely apartment, and I did not want to go around my family. I knew that my mom would ask a lot of questions that I did not want to answer. I decided that I would put on a little makeup and go out on the town. It was ladies' night at the Deja Vu night spot. I was a regular, and the bartender knew my drink. I wanted this day to be put in my past and to start a new future without Bo. As I stepped into the nightclub looking brand new, I observed the scene. The crowd was always huge on ladies' night. The men loved it. Why not? It was 10 girls to 1 guy. Several people were at the bar to get drinks. I stood against the wall to wait for the line to get smaller. I was enjoying the mood and the music. As soon as I got deep into the groove, I saw a tall 6-foot Bo coming into the club entrance. Immediately, I had a flashback of the fight in that afternoon. I could not believe him. Why was he here? I started ranting. My blood began to boil. Without thinking, I grabbed a chair and ran towards him. I swung the chair at him across the head and the back. He lost his balance by stumbling over one of the dining tables. I continued to hit him with the chair. I was wild and out of control. The club crowd dispersed. The owner of Deja Vu took a handgun and shot in the air. Wow. I stopped swinging and came to my senses. I had come out of a blackout. Bo regained his stamina and ran out of the club. I was shaking nonstop and needed to calm myself. I was dying for a smoke. I asked a stranger nearby if he had a cigarette. He handed it to me as if he was presenting me with an Academy Award. He did everything but say, nominee for the actress is crazy, Cherie. I took the cigarette as if I deserved it. I had unleashed my inner mad woman. I grabbed some matches from the bar and walked outside of the club to smoke. I lit my cigarette and took one puff. Just when I attempted to calm myself, I heard Nick's loud voice yelling, Cherie, Cherie, look out! I quickly turned around. Bo was coming towards me with an iron pipe. I dropped my cigarette. He took a swing at me. I ducked and he missed. The owner came outside to the front of the building. He said that he had called the police and that they were on their way. Bo dropped the iron pipe and nervously ran away. I picked my cigarette up from the ground and relit it. This time I smoked all of it. Nick walked over. Are you all right, Cherie? Yes, and thank you, Nick. You looked out for me. Where in the world did you come from? You are lucky that he said, you are lucky that I saw you coming. Nick said arrogantly, now let's go ease our minds. I had a rough day and I need something a little more than a cigarette. We went to my apartment. I unlocked the door and turned on the lights. Bo had some clothing articles and items at my house. I packed them, called the police, and set his things on the outside of my apartment. Once and for all, it was all over between us. I moved some magazines off the sofa and directed Nick to sit. Make yourself at home. He appeared to be comfortable already. He reached in his pockets and took out some packages. Nick had more than marijuana that night. He had heroin, too. I was not intimidated at all. I mainly smoked marijuana but had experimented with other drugs before. I knew that we were about to get loaded. I walked to my bedroom and changed clothes to get more comfortable. I yelled, Nick, it's okay for you to come and hang out back here with me. He smirked. It was as if he knew I would be inviting him. He placed all of the dope on my nightstand and set all using paraphernalia aside. He prepared the drugs for us. He had enough to party all night. That's just what he had, a two-man party. As I transparently looked through his con man, it aroused me. He was very intriguing. He knew it. He got close to my flesh, and I let go of my defenses. We were intimate. The entire duration of intercourse, I had given him careful instructions. He was a very good listener. When I said, stroke me here, he did. When I said, kiss me, he complied. He appeased me the way I suggested. He was awesome. He became a master's student in my bedroom that night. I taught him how to seduce me. I rolled over the next morning to a Cheshire cat grinning Nick. I looked out of the window. Both items were picked up from the outside of my apartment. I embraced my new beginning. Revolving door. Nick did not work. He was good at selling people false dreams. He made money with clever little schemes. The more schemes he played, the more drugs we bought. We got high on a daily basis. We had heroin, cocaine, marijuana, pills, and alcohol. We would IV use drugs as well. We spent days and days getting high and having sex. Nick moved in after about a month. I never invited him to, but he somehow found residency with me. We made our money by swindling other people out of their money. Nick could hold conversations with people and have their money in the same night. We sold fake furniture, jewelry, and other items. We were all about selling dreams. My mother despised him. She said he was a liar and that he was no good for me. She said that he would only bring me to ruins. My mother was a church-going, Bible-toting prayer warrior. She would not bite her tongue if she believed something in her heart to be true. I was not trying to hear all of her religious jargon. Mom did not know him like I did. She did not understand him. My feelings for him were deep. It was nothing that I ever felt before. I would die for Nick. Dying for this man did not seem right in my head. However, it was true. Mom would say, Cherie, You have a 4-year-old son that you should be spending time with. I love my son. I knew mother was right, yet I wanted to be with Nick. That is who I spent my time with. One day I was washing Nick's pants and found 3 vials in his pocket. When he walked through the door from God knows where, I questioned him. What in the heck is this? Oh, my mother gave me this for protection. What is it? Girl, this is nothing. It is sand, sulfur, and salt. What? Sand, sulfur, and salt? I told you it is for my protection. This was really strange to me. I had never heard of anything like that before. It bothered me the entire night. I could hardly sleep. The next morning when Nick left the house, I phoned Mom. Hello, Mom. Hi, Cherie. I have something weird to ask you. Is it true that a man is protected if he carries vials of sand, sulfur, and salt in his pocket? Protected from what? I don't know. Maybe hurt and harm. Who is doing that, Cherie? Nick is. Girl, that sounds like witchcraft type of stuff. You better get out of that. All right, Mom, I'll call you later. My mother puzzled me with the whole witchcraft thing. Why would anybody want to do witchcraft? I should not have asked her. She doesn't even like Nick. I needed more answers. I called Nick's mother. His mother said, I give all of my children that to protect them from hurt, harm, and danger. Okay, thank you, Miss Carter. Now, that was strange. I had never heard of anything like it before. The next time I saw the vials, I threw them away. Nick and I continued to run schemes together. It wasn't enough that I liked to steal. When my kleptomania and his fraudulent operations married, we became hellish. One night, this strange man asked me to get in his truck and go around the world with him. I asked him to explain it. He told me that it was to sodomize me. I hated the term and the sounds of it. He made me sick. I got in the truck and went with him anyway. I could not say no. I saw him as a victim. Most of all, I saw dollar signs. When we pulled into his home, there was a small compartment attached to his premises. He unlocked his side door, and invited me in. From where I stood, I was able to see inside of a small compartment. It looked sort of like a warehouse. I was amazed to see what was in it. There was a mass amount of stolen items. Everything had price tags still on them. I saw guns, jewelry, electrical appliances, computers, auto parts, and other nice things. All of it looked like an opportunity for me. I just didn't know how to go in for the steal. The strange man's phone rang. He walked into the room in the back to discuss what appeared to be a private matter. As soon as I saw him out of my sight, I grabbed as many items as I could. I stored several items underneath the staircase outside of the warehouse. I eased back into the house to try to calm my racing heart. While trying to control my breathing, I scanned the room. His black wallet lying on the table got my attention. I quickly grabbed it and ran out of his front door. Before dawn, I went back to his home and gathered all of the items hidden under the staircase. I sold them all and obtained thousands of dollars before the day was over. I let Nick in on it. We decided to go back to the warehouse for more. The man was not home. While we were there, the strange man pulled up and saw the both of us. We both ran. I sprinted towards the back of the house and attempted to climb the fence. Nick ran in an opposite direction. As I got ready to cross over the fence, I turned around. The man looked me directly in the face. I knew he recognized me. Nick got away. Behind my cell, I had to process the 3 years I was given. The man pressed charges on me for forgery. I emptied his checking and savings account when I stole his wallet. I was most miserable. I knew that I was going to miss Mom, my son, my sisters, and most of all, Nick. After almost a month of being incarcerated, I was on the yard with the other females for recreation time. I could not believe what I was seeing. Directly on the other side of the fence was Nick in the men's population. He was waving and smiling. Nick was there for stealing someone's checkbook and had written several checks. Nick had a half-sized sheet of paper in his hand. He folded it into a little paper airplane and lobbed it into the air across the female's fence. I opened the note and it read, "I need to be wherever you are. I came here for you." I thought to myself, now that's love. He said that he committed the crime to be with me. I knew that he loved me. Who would do something like that unless they love the person? Nick, that too. He was sentenced to 18 months. He was released from jail before my sentence was up. I met with the parole board during my hearing. They gave me a stipulation that I am not to have any more dealings with Nick. They granted my parole contingent on me not seeing him again. I gave them my word. Being around Nick would violate my parole. I agreed with all of my legal obligations and processed out of jail. I had no apartment to go to, so I went directly to Nick's house. When he opened the door, I saw 3 young ladies in his living room. Nick had got into pimping. He was staying in a duplex. I would get money from him, from his pimping jobs. I liked the money, but I could not stand the fact that they were around my man. I picked fights with the girls until they could not stand to be around. That was my man, and they had no place in our lives. Nick began treating me as if he was my pimp. He did not want me to sleep with anyone else. However, he did want me to seduce other men. My job was to lure men into a secluded area and promise them intercourse. After I have the men unarmed and disrobed, Nick would come from hiding to rob them of everything. The more I did this, the higher I needed to be. We got deeper and deeper into drug use. I was intravenously using heroin on a daily basis. I made it a point to visit Mom and my son weekly. She would not hesitate to tell me of her opinion of me. "Cherie, I know you think you love him, but he is not going to bring anything good to your life. Baby, you are destroying your life." She told me this respectfully, but I loved him. He was not that bad. I had my own mind. Nick could not influence me to do anything. I made my own decisions. I chose to steal and do drugs. Why is he to blame for everything I do? I hated to come around my family to hear it. One night I was at Mom's house. Nick came to get me. As I got ready to leave with him, she followed me to the door. "Cherie, if he loves you, he would tell you to spend time with your son." That is what a real man would say. "Can't you see that your son is crying? He does not want you to leave with Nick." Mama did not understand. I had to be with Nick. I would die without him. I would die for him. I prayed to have a baby with him. I birthed an 8-pound, 7-ounce girl. Nick and I continued to do drugs and run schemes. I was arrested again and went back to the penitentiary. I had violated my parole. 10 years into our relationship, Nick began asking me to have sex with him, another man and another woman. He eventually coerced me into watching him perform oral sex on another woman. This was totally against my morals and values. I did not want to do it. It felt nasty and I hated it while I was engaging in such activity. I could not help myself and felt like I was under a spell. My world became so dark. To see a woman on the streets having sex with a dog had become acceptable. It was part of the lifestyle. The cycle of Nick, drugs, sex, crime, and penitentiary time went on for about 15 years. I was in prison more than I was free. Whenever I was locked up, I reached for my Bible. I spent hours and hours learning more and more about Jesus Christ and the Word of God. I would still crave for drugs and for Nick at the same time. Each time I was released, I went back in a cycle that had gotten deeper and darker. He introduced me to places and people that I would have never engaged or known otherwise. Drug use, schemes, and pimping validated me. It became my way of life. One night after being released from prison, Nick and I were walking the streets. He looked at me and started yelling, "Why are you out here in the streets? You are glowing. You need to go back to where you came from." He scared me. I was confused. I did not understand why he did not want me around him. That night did not stop me from going deeper into my more sex, drugs, and crime. I was unbelievably miserable. I wanted to get away from the lifestyle, but I still wanted Nick very badly. I can remember walking through the streets alone. I approached a church and Saturday and sat on its stoop. I looked up in the heavens after a long, tired night. Tears were rolling down my eyes, and I cried out, God, please deliver me from this man. I cannot take anymore. After crying, I got up off the stoop and went back into the jungle of pain. I wanted out, but it did not know how to change. I went back to the penitentiary. I found out that I was pregnant. Somewhere in between schemes and drug use, I got pregnant. The child was not Nick's. He knew it. When I was released, Nick looked at me differently. He resented the fact that I was pregnant for someone else. He started physically abusing me. Every time I walked the streets and saw a church step, I sat there and cried and asked God for deliverance. I felt as if I was going to die. Something was unnatural about the way I was living. My prayers were becoming more serious and from the heart. Lord, please help me. I want my children to have a mother. I want my mother's prayers to be answered. Please help me, God. Please take the taste of desire of sex with this man away from me. Take the drugs and him away. Lord, I just want it all to go away. A week after praying this prayer, I found out that I had a warrant for my arrest. I refused to turn myself in. I stayed in my lifestyle. I could not get over Nick. He was my every thought. I wanted more and more of him. I had run from the law for about 2 years before I was caught. I went back to jail and found out I was pregnant with twins. They were not Nick's. I delivered them in jail. My mother and sisters came to get them. I was hurt as they separated the three of us. My pain forced me to get back in my Bible again. There were pastors and clergymen who would come by the jail and minister to me. I got so deep in the Word of God until I was totally set free. I knew that God had answered my prayers. I had no urge or cravings for drugs and alcohol, nor did I desire Nick anymore. I spent almost 1 year in jail, a crack in the door. I was released from jail to return to my mother's home. Mom opened the door and grabbed me. We hugged with excitement. Looking over her shoulder, I saw Nick. He was there assisting my mom with the twins. I had been clean for almost a year. I did not want any more of the streets. I looked deep into his eyes and got a revelation of who he was. I saw a deceiver, a pervert, and a liar. Almost everything he wanted to do was nasty, perverted, and unnatural. I could not see any of his goodness. I wanted to, but I could not. He did not look the same anymore. He was not attractive to me. In fact, I strongly disliked him. I felt as if he had stolen some years from me and my children. I could not stand to be around him. It occurred to me that I was free from him. I found a place of detachment from this man. I set myself some goals and accomplished them as time went on. I earned a degree and obtained a profession in addiction counseling. I had found purpose in life. I was very passionate about advocating for women and for men and for women who had been incarcerated due to their addictive natures. I understood their pain. My life was stabilizing after all my mother's prayers. Within 2 years, she became ill and died. She was able to see me clean, sober, and free. Praise God. I really missed Mama and longed for her presence. Almost a year after Mom's death, Nick showed up at my front door. He had that familiar look. It was the same look he had when he first started being serious. Then he opened his mouth. Cherie, can I make love to you? Boy, are you out of your mind? Nick, you really need to get a life. I could not believe he tried that line. I left him where he was standing and went on with my life. It was a few months after that I would see Nick again. The night was really quiet. When I pulled into a gas station, I got out to pump gas. He approached me and started calling me all sort of perverted and profane names. He accused me of being sexually intimate with my own son. I tried to ignore him until he called my deceased mother out a profane name. I immediately jumped in my car, started it up, and attempted to run him over. I hit him with the car. I was trying to kill him. I was very angry and tearful. In the midst of accelerating the car against his slim body, my arms were suspended in the air. I heard a voice that said, "Do not kill him. He wants to take you with him. Never mess with him again. Let him go." It was that moment that I was brought back into reality. I was close to going back to prison. This time you'll go for manslaughter. I drove away again, never to look back. I strongly believe that he followed me from my house. I inherited my mother's house. My children and I lived there. My siblings have their own homes. Everyone could breathe now that I was all grown up. I continued strongly in the faith and the wisdom that my mother imparted in me. She raised me with spiritual principles, and that is what I aim to live by. My children were older. I placed energy in restoring my relationship with them. I spent 10 consecutive years improving my profession, my spiritual life, and my relationship with the children. I have felt a lot of guilt for my being absent from them in the past. I overcompensated for the times I was not there. I was at games, school functions, and church functions. They deserved it, and I wanted to do it. It was an ongoing struggle to get some type of stability with them. They were resentful and confused. I was not willing to give up. I needed to be there regardless of how they acted out. They had some emotional problems. I was there clean and sober to assist them with all medical or psychiatric appointments. They needed their mom more than anything. Since I was not all caught up with the man, I was able to be there. I had abstinence from drugs and men for 10 years. I desired a husband, but I only wanted him in God's timing. One afternoon, I received a call that one of my girlfriends had liver cancer. I recalled my times of IV drug use, so I decided to get a medical checkup for hepatitis C. My results came back with a diagnosis of renal cell carcinoma, a type of kidney cancer. I became very weak and depressed. Nick overheard that I had been sick. He called me from jail. I was not in a place to be mean to him. I was a very sick woman and had no right to be mean to anyone. He would check on me regularly. He appeared to be really concerned. I found myself talking to him every day. One weekend, Nick called and asked me to bring the children to see him for visitation. I honored his request. He did consider me at my lowest state. Only one was a child, yet he wanted to see them all. Nick got out of jail and was released into a halfway house. He worked while living there. I had no job at the time. I went in and out of the hospital. He gave me money every time he received a check. I took every cent he gave. Besides, he owed me for all the years of hell. I gained enough strength to get a part-time job. I made enough money through making telephone book routes. Nick started helping me with my routes. He knew that I would be in pain at times due to my health, so he assisted me with work. One morning I was scheduled for surgery. I could not go to work. Nick was nice enough to take my route for me and afterwards bring the money. Nick left the hospital en route never to return. That's right. He never showed up at the hospital. No Nick, no money. Closed and locked. I fell to my knees and asked God, please remove Nick from me, O Lord. Forgive me for going back into the relationship that you delivered me from. I humbly ask you to do what you did before and deliver me again. It was at that moment I realized I was being set up for permanent incarceration or death. God was serious about my position in him. I would never be able to return to this man or the lifestyle associated him again. I would die. It was inevitable. Whenever I feel vulnerable, the enemy uses Nick to make an appearance in my life. From the very beginning, I knew what he was about. The fact of the matter is that I cannot live a drug-free, non-abusive, law-abiding lifestyle with him in the equation. I had to give him up. It was a must. He is a death sentence to me. I have a life and want to live it. God always rescued me through the penitentiary. Jail had been the answer to my prayers each time. It was my alone time with God. I was learning order, structure, and discipline. I could not have that with Nick, in the streets and under the influence. That's right, I went with him in darkness and under submission. Each time I went to jail, I got in the Bible. I absorbed the Word of God. My salvation was being worked out each time. I spent more time in jail than I did with Nick. God knew that if I spent more time with Nick than with him, I would be dead today. God's grace and mercy kept me. God snatched me out of hell for a time such as this. I also know that when I am feeling lonely, sick, needy, and vulnerable, I am to rely on the Lord. Whenever I seek outside of God, I set myself up for the enemy to reign in my life. I knew not to go to visit Nick in jail. I definitely shouldn't have taken the children. It was those ongoing phone conversations that got me in my vulnerable state. I invested a lot of time and energy in him. I wanted to believe that he would change. I thought that Nick owed me something. I did not want another woman to claim rights to him after my training and investment. I deserved to have the man that he was going to become. That was a lie from the pits of hell. There was no earthly way Nick could pay me for anything. The price had been paid, and that is through Jesus Christ. I opened the door to him because of the lifestyle I was living. Being under the influence of chemicals opens the door up to very poor choices. I opened the doors to situations that were very scary and dangerous. My life had become a revolving door, one that kept revolving, a lifestyle of drugs, Nick, and jail. It would not stop rotating until I made some life changes. I wanted to get out, but lacked the ability to do so. I continued to call on God and made small steps, which led to stability. Once again, I allowed Nick to assist me with my emotional needs instead of God. In the past, I used drugs, crime, and Nick to get an emotional fix. By my being sick, he was able to slip through the door again. I thought the door was closed. However, there was a slight crack. I knew God was at the head of my life, but Nick came in at a time of, vulnerability. Today, I thank God that he is one that has not forsaken me. I praise God for his goodness and his mercy. I love God for being my provider. It is him that I trust. I have learned to allow God to be my source. I closed the door by asking God to take my situation from me and never to revisit it. God locked it through my sincerity of not wanting to go back and through his grace of sustaining me. I have been clean and sober for 19 years. I await God to give me a mate that he so desires for me to have. He answered my prayers and put me back on track. Nick has attempted to engage me on several occasions to renew our relationship. He does this when he tries to visit our daughter. Today I know the devil has no new tricks. These are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. Revelation chapter 3, verse 7 through 8. That concludes, because I cried out, chapter 5. Okay? All right, I'm going to close it here. It's almost 34 minutes. I love you guys. I'll see you next video. The next video, unless something comes up or happens, and I see something on the radar, I'm in Luke chapter 12. It's going to be good. It's a must-see. Don't miss it. Love you guys. Stay prayed up. Thanks.